The manila envelope had no return address. Just my name, David Lawson, typed neatly on a white label. I almost tossed it with the junk mail. Almost. I sat in my truck in the high school parking lot, the September Georgia heat making the cab feel like a slow cooker. Practice started in 20 minutes. Through the windshield, I could see my assistant coaches setting up the blocking sleds, completely unaware that my entire world had just cracked down the middle. 14 photographs, each one a knife. Megan, my wife of 12 years, kissing another man in a parking garage. Her hand on his chest, his fingers tangled in her auburn hair. The same hair I'd watched her brush 1,000 mornings. Megan, holding hands across a restaurant table at some place with cloth napkins and candles. Her smile wide and genuine. The smile she used to give me. Megan entering a hotel room, the timestamp visible in the corner. Last Thursday, 2:47 p.m. Last Thursday, when she'd told me she was at a curriculum workshop in Atlanta. When she'd texted me a picture of her conference badge and complained about the keynote speaker being boring. I looked at the man in the photos again, though I didn't need to. I'd recognized him the moment I saw his profile. Tyler Bennett, attorney at Ashford and Associates, member of our church. The guy who'd stood next to me at last year's 4th of July barbecue, laughing about how our wives spent more time on Pinterest than they did watching the fireworks. The guy whose wife, Rachel, had been Megan's best friend since they were college roommates. The guy who was apparently sleeping with my wife. My hands should have been shaking. I should have been crying, or screaming, or punching my steering wheel until my knuckles bled. That's what you see in the movies, right? The betrayed husband losing control, making a scene, doing something stupid that gives the cheaters ammunition. But I didn't feel any of that. What I felt was cold, clear, focused. Like the moment before a big game when everything else falls away and there is only the play in front of you. I spread the photos across my passenger seat like a dealer laying out cards. Clinical, methodical. That's how my brain works, always has. You don't coach football for 15 years without learning to compartmentalize, to shove your emotions into a box when you need to think clearly. Something caught my eye in the 7th photo. In the background, slightly out of focus, there was a figure. Someone standing near a pillar in the parking garage, watching Megan and Tyler. Not part of their meeting. Observing. Documenting. Someone else knew. I gathered the photos, slid them back into the envelope, and locked them in my glove compartment. Then I grabbed my clipboard, stepped out into the humid afternoon, and walked toward the practice field. Coach Lawson, Jimmy Reeves, my starting quarterback, jogged over. You see the film from Westfield? Their secondary is weak on the corners, I finished. I saw it. We'll exploit it Friday. Now give me 20 laps. 20? Coach, practice hasn't even... Make it 25. He took off running. I watched him go, then turned to face the rest of my team filtering onto the field. 300 students would walk through these halls tomorrow. Half the town would see me at Friday's game under the lights. The Lawson family had been a fixture in Millbrook for 3 generations. My grandfather built the hardware store. My father drank himself out of it. I'd clawed my way back to respectability through discipline, through hard work, through being the man this community could count on. And my wife was making me a fool. I blew my whistle. Practice began. I ran those boys harder than I had all season, and if they noticed something different in my voice, they were smart enough not to mention it. Megan was making her famous chicken piccata when I walked through the door that evening. The smell of lemon and capers filled our kitchen. The kitchen we'd renovated together 3 summers ago, arguing over countertop colors and cabinet hardware like it mattered. Like any of it mattered. Hey, babe. She turned from the stove, wiping her hands on a dish towel, and pressed a kiss to my cheek. How was practice? I studied her face. The face I'd woken up next to for 12 years. Looking for cracks, for tells, for something I'd missed. Good. Jimmy's getting more confident in the pocket. The protection's coming together. That's great. She turned back to the stove, stirring the sauce with the wooden spoon I'd given her our first Christmas together. Oh, I forgot to mention, I need to work late Thursday. Parent-teacher conferences are coming up and I'm behind on prep. Thursday. The same day of the week as the hotel photo timestamp. I kept my voice even. What time will you be home? Probably not until 8 or 9. You know how those planning sessions go. Janet Pittman, she caught herself. Janet from the math department wants us to standardize the format for progress reports. I noted the slight hesitation, the almost slip. She was building her alibi in real time, right in front of me, and she had no idea I was watching every move she made. That's fine, I said. I'll probably watch film anyway, maybe order a pizza. You and your film. She laughed, and something in my chest twisted. It was a good laugh, warm, genuine, the laugh of a woman who loved her husband. Except it wasn't genuine at all, was it? It was a performance. An act she'd perfected over 6 months of lying to my face. Dinner's in 10. Actually, I'm going to check on something in the garage first. Take your time. I excused myself to the garage, closed the door behind me, and pulled out my phone. My older brother Nathan picked up on the second ring. Davy, what's wrong? Nathan was 3 years older than me and twice as paranoid. He'd spent 20 years as a cop in Savannah before going private, starting his own investigation firm after a bullet to the shoulder ended his patrol days. He could read people the way I could read a defensive formation, and he never called unless something was wrong. I need you to come to town, quietly. Can you do that? A pause. I heard him set something down. A glass, maybe. Ice clinked. How bad? Bad. Megan bad. The silence stretched for 5 full seconds. Nathan had been at our wedding. He'd danced with Megan at the reception, told her she was too good for his little brother. He'd been wrong about that, apparently. Tell me. Not over the phone, but I have photos. Professional quality. Someone's been watching her. Someone hired a PI? That's what it looks like. Another pause. Don't confront her, David. Whatever you do, don't tip your hand. You hear me? First rule of any investigation, never let the suspect know you're watching. I'm not going to confront her. Good. He let out a breath. I'll be there tomorrow night. Tell her I'm an old college buddy visiting for a few days, catching up before deer season. Don't act any different. Don't pull away from her. Be exactly who you've always been until we know what we're dealing with. I understand. Do you? Because most men in your shoes would have already put their fist through a wall by now. Or worse. I'm not most men. No, he said quietly. You never were. That's what worries me. I hung up and stood in the garage for a long moment, surrounded by the detritus of our life together. The kayaks we'd bought for our 10th anniversary trip. The Christmas decorations she insisted on putting up the day after Thanksgiving. The workbench where I'd built her a jewelry box for her birthday, staying up until 3 in the morning to get the inlay just right. My father walked out on my mother when I was 11. She took him back, forgave him, believed his promises. And it ate her alive from the inside out, slowly, over 15 years, until the cancer finished what his betrayal had started. I'd sworn I'd never be that weak. That night, I lay next to Megan in our bed, staring at the ceiling while she slept peacefully beside me. Her breathing was soft and regular. She smelled like the lavender lotion she'd used since I met her. In sleep, she looked exactly like the woman I'd married. Sweet, gentle, kind. And I felt nothing but ice. The text came Tuesday afternoon while I was reviewing film in my office. We need to talk. Riverside Park. 6 p.m. I'm the one who sent the photos. RB. RB Rachel Bennett. I sat back in my chair, the pieces clicking into place. Tyler's wife. Megan's best friend of 8 years. The woman who'd stood up at our wedding, who'd brought casseroles when Megan had her appendix out, who'd cried on our couch when she found out she couldn't have more children. She'd sent the photos. At 6 o'clock, I found her sitting on a bench near the river, watching the water catch the fading sunlight. She looked different than I'd ever seen her. Not the put-together hostess who organized charity auctions and baked birthday cakes shaped like cartoon characters. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. No makeup. Her jaw was set in a way that reminded me of my linebackers before a big game. I sat down beside her without speaking. "You're not surprised," she said finally. "I figured it out when I got your text." She nodded, still watching the water. "I found out 3 weeks ago. Noticed some charges on Tyler's credit card that didn't make sense. A restaurant in Columbus we'd never been to. A jewelry store I'd never seen anything from. Little things. The kind of things you explain away at first. Work dinners, client gifts, expenses that just don't add up." She paused. "So I hired someone, a professional. The photos are good quality. He's expensive, worth every penny." She turned to look at me for the first time. Her eyes were dry, but something burned behind them. Something hot and controlled and dangerous. "David, I didn't come to you to cry on your shoulder. I'm not here to commiserate over wine and wonder where our marriages went wrong. I came because I need an ally, not a victim." "What do you mean?" "I mean that Tyler has been planning this for months. He's been building a case against me, telling people I'm difficult, that I'm emotionally unstable, that he's only staying for the kids. He called me overbearing at the Petersons' dinner party last month. Said I need to relax. Laughed about how high-strung I am." Her jaw tightened. "He's been laying groundwork so that when he leaves me, he looks like the long-suffering husband who finally had enough. Everyone will say they saw it coming. Poor Tyler, putting up with Rachel for all those years." I felt a cold twist in my gut. "How do you know he's planning to leave?" "Because I intercepted a letter from his divorce attorney. He was planning to file after the holidays, wait until the kids were distracted by Christmas, then serve me in January." She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded paper. "He was going to claim I was emotionally abusive, go for primary custody, take the house." I stared at the letter. "Mitchell and Associates, Family Law, Preliminary Consultation Summary." "There's more." Rachel's voice was steady, but I could see her hands trembling slightly. "He took out a $50,000 home equity line against our house 2 months ago. Forged my signature on the documents. That's a felony." "I know. I've already consulted with an attorney in Atlanta, outside our social circle, outside anyone Tyler might know." She pulled a folder from her bag, thick with documents. "The affair with Megan isn't just about adultery, David. Tyler's been using firm money to fund it. Hotels, gifts, a secret credit card that gets billed to client development. His senior partner, William Ashford, has no idea." "Not yet." I took the folder. Inside were credit card statements, hotel receipts, a timeline of dates and locations stretching back 6 months. April 14th, Magnolia Inn, room 412. April 21st, Magnolia Inn, room 318. April 28th. Same hotel, different room. On and on, every Thursday like clockwork. "They've been doing this for 6 months, I said. 6 months of lies. 6 months of looking me in the eye at dinner parties while he was sleeping with my best friend." Rachel's voice cracked for just a moment, then hardened again. "I trusted her, David. I told her things about my marriage, things I was worried about, things I was afraid of. And she was using it. Learning his weaknesses, finding the cracks she could exploit." "What do you want?" I asked. Rachel turned to face me fully, and in that moment, I saw something I recognized. The same cold clarity I'd felt in my truck, looking at those photos. The same controlled fury of someone who's been underestimated, betrayed, and has decided to fight back. I want justice. I want every lie exposed. I want them to face what they've done in front of everyone who ever believed their act. And I want my children to know, when they're old enough, that their mother didn't just roll over and take it. I thought about my mother, about the way she'd shrunk over the years, folding in on herself, making herself smaller and smaller until there was nothing left. "I'm listening," I said. We talked until the sun went down. She showed me everything. Text message screenshots from the family phone plan Tyler had forgotten they shared, hotel registration records, a detailed chronology of every lie. By the end, I had a clear picture of what my wife had been doing every Thursday for 6 months. "The fall festival," I said. "October 18th. Rachel nodded slowly. "The Teacher of the Year ceremony. I heard they're honoring Megan." "They are. The town council announced it last week." "That's 4 weeks away. Enough time to gather everything we need." I extended my hand. She took it. Her grip was firm and steady. "No confrontation until we're ready," I said. "We don't tip our hand. We gather everything, and we choose the moment." Agreed. I drove home in the dark, my mind already running through plays. Nathan arrived Wednesday evening, rolling into town in his beat-up Suburban with a cover story about being an old college buddy visiting for a few days. He was good at this. He'd spent his whole career pretending to be things he wasn't, playing roles that let him get close to people who didn't want to be found. Megan was delighted to meet him. "David's told me so much about you," she said, pulling him into a hug I could barely watch. "The Dawson brothers, reunited. This is so great." "Pleasure's mine." Nathan's smile was warm, genuine, utterly false. "Davey here owes me from a poker game back in '09. Figured I'd come collect before the statute of limitations ran out." She laughed, that lovely, lying laugh, and spent half an hour making conversation about deer season and Savannah real estate and whether the Braves had any shot at the pennant this year. Nathan played along like a man who had nothing on his mind but small talk. After dinner, I made an excuse about needing to show Nathan the new sound system in my truck, a transparent lie that Megan didn't question. We walked to the driveway, climbed into the cab, and sat in the darkness while crickets sang in the trees. "She's good," Nathan said quietly. "Really good. If I didn't know what she was doing, I'd think she was the perfect wife." "She was. For 12 years she was." "Or she was always this and you didn't see it." I didn't have an answer for that. "So here's how this works," Nathan continued, pulling a small notebook from his jacket. "I'm going to tail Tyler starting tomorrow. Document his movements for at least 3 days. Establish patterns, identify the meeting locations, get photos that would hold up in court. Time-stamped, clear facial identification, proper chain of custody. Rachel already has photos. Good. More is better. Different angles, different occasions, builds a pattern that no lawyer can explain away as a misunderstanding." He paused. "I'm also going to run deeper background on Tyler. Financials, professional history, anything that might be useful. If he's stealing from his law firm like Rachel says, there's going to be a paper trail. Rachel mentioned he might have overbilled the school district on a case 2 years ago." Nathan's eyebrows went up. "That's interesting. The Thompson lawsuit?" "I think so. Some liability thing when a kid got hurt on a field trip. I'll pull the court records, compare them to his billing statements." Nathan smiled thinly. "If there's dirt, I'll find it. That's what I do." We sat on my back porch after Megan went to bed, speaking in low voices while moths circled the porch light. "You're sure about this?" he asked, nursing a beer. "I've never been more sure about anything in my life." "Then why haven't you confronted her?" I watched the moths spiral toward the light, drawn by something they couldn't resist, even though it would destroy them. "Because I want to know everything first. I want to know how long and how often and what else she's lied about." I want to know if there's anything left of the woman I married, or if she never existed at all." Nathan was quiet for a moment. "That's a good answer. Most guys in your position would have blown up by now, thrown things, made threats, given her time to spin a story, call a lawyer, hide assets. I'm not most guys." "No." He set down his beer. "You're not." Over the next week, Nathan became a ghost. He was there at breakfast, making small talk with Megan about the weather and the football team, and then he'd disappear for hours. Every night, after Megan fell asleep, he'd show me what he'd found. Thursday, he followed Tyler to the Magnolia Inn, a boutique hotel 45 minutes outside town, far enough from Millbrook that they wouldn't run into anyone they knew. He photographed Tyler's car in the parking lot, photographed Megan arriving 20 minutes later, photographed them leaving together 3 hours after that. The timestamps were clear. The faces were unmistakable. But it was what Nathan found the following Monday that changed everything. "Your boy Tyler has a problem," Nathan said, spreading papers across my kitchen table while Megan was at school. "Well, several problems. First, you were right about the billing. 2 years ago, he billed the school district for 80 hours of work on the Thompson lawsuit. I pulled the court records. He filed a total of 6 motions, all using boilerplate language. 20 hours of work, maximum. He pocketed the difference. That's fraud. It's creative billing, hard to prove but not impossible." Nathan slid another paper toward me. "But here's where it gets interesting. Your wife isn't Tyler's only side piece." I stared at the photograph. Tyler, entering an apartment complex on the south side of Savannah. A young woman meeting him at the door. Dark hair, pretty, couldn't have been more than 25. Her name's Jessica Cole. She's a paralegal at his firm. Started there 8 months ago. Nathan shook his head. "This guy isn't just a cheater. He's running a whole operation." I should have felt something. Vindication, maybe, or fresh anger. Instead, I felt a strange calm settling over me. Every piece of evidence was another card in my hand. Every lie Tyler told was another nail in his coffin. "Does Jessica know about Megan?" "No idea, but I can find out." "Do it." The hardest part wasn't gathering evidence. The hardest part was pretending. Every morning I woke up next to a woman I no longer knew. Every evening, I sat across from her at dinner, listening to her talk about her day, her students, her committee meetings, knowing that half of what she said was fabrication, and wondering which half. Every night, I lay awake while she slept, counting the ceiling tiles and running through scenarios in my head. The last Saturday of September, Megan and I attended the Millbrook Community Foundation Gala at the country club. It was one of those events where everyone who mattered in town put on expensive clothes and pretended to care about charity while really just caring about being seen. Megan loved it. Of course she did. She wore a green dress I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. Emerald silk that matched her eyes. Fitted perfectly to her figure. Her hair was pinned up in an elaborate arrangement, showing off the pearl earrings that had belonged to my grandmother. She looked beautiful. She looked like the woman I'd fallen in love with on a spring afternoon 15 years ago, when she'd laughed at something I said, and I'd felt like the luckiest man in the world. Now I just felt sick. "Smile, honey." She adjusted my tie as we walked into the ballroom. "You look like you're heading to a funeral." "Maybe I am." She laughed, missing the edge in my voice entirely. "You and your football metaphors. Come on, let's find the Ashfords. William said he wanted to talk to you about the booster club." We worked the room like the golden couple everyone believed us to be. Handshakes, air kisses, small talk about grandchildren and real estate and the unseasonably warm weather. I played my part, the affable coach, the devoted husband, the pillar of the community, while watching my wife's eyes drift across the room to where Tyler stood with a glass of wine. The look that passed between them lasted barely a second. Quick, hungry, hidden, a secret language I wasn't supposed to understand. But I understood. I understood everything. David! Mayor Hutchins clapped me on the shoulder, mercifully pulling me out of my thoughts. Hell of a season so far. You think the boys can take state this year? We're working on it, Mayor. Got some young talent coming up through JV that might surprise some people. That's what I like to hear. This town needs a championship. Something to be proud of. He turned to Megan with a warm smile. And Megan, I hear the Teacher of the Year committee is very impressed with your nomination packet. October 18th is going to be your day. Megan's smile was radiant, practiced, perfect. I'm just honored to be considered. There are so many deserving teachers in our district. Humble as always. That's what we love about you. I excused myself to get a drink before I said something I'd regret. At the bar, I found myself standing next to William Ashford, Tyler's senior partner, a silver-haired man in his 60s who'd been a deacon at First Baptist for as long as I could remember. He had the kind of face that suggested absolute moral certainty, the face of a man who'd never doubted himself in his life. David, good to see you. You too, William, I ordered a bourbon. Busy season at the firm? Always is this time of year. Tyler's been burning the midnight oil on the Patterson case. Depositions, discovery, the whole 9 yards. He shook his head with a smile. That boy works harder than anyone I've ever seen. I told him last week he needs to take more time for his family. Rachel must be going crazy with how much he's gone. I took a sip of my drink and kept my face carefully neutral. Hard workers are hard to find. Ain't that the truth? I spent the rest of the evening watching Tyler work the room with his easy charm. Watching Megan orbit around him at careful distances, never getting too close, never acknowledging the invisible thread that connected them. Watching the way their hands didn't touch, the way their eyes didn't meet, the way they maintained the fiction of indifference with practiced ease. They were good at this, both of them. They'd had 6 months to perfect the performance. Later that night, Megan reached for me in bed. Her hand slid up my chest, her lips brushed my neck, and for the first time in 12 years of marriage, I felt nothing but revulsion. I'm exhausted, I said, gently pushing her hand away. Long day. You've been exhausted a lot lately. There was something in her voice, concern maybe, or suspicion. I couldn't tell anymore. Season's ramping up. You know how it is. I know. She rolled away from me, her back a wall between us. I just miss you, that's all. I stared at the ceiling until I heard her breathing slow into sleep. The woman who missed me was also the woman who'd been in another man's bed 3 days ago. The woman who'd built a life with me was also the woman who'd been tearing it down, brick by brick, for half a year. How do you reconcile those two truths? How do you look at someone you loved and see the stranger underneath? The next morning, I drove out to Pleasant Hill Cemetery and sat beside my mother's grave. The headstone read, Margaret Ann Lawson, 1951 to 2018, beloved mother. It didn't say anything about the years she'd spent making excuses for my father, or the way she'd gradually stopped laughing, stopped hoping, stopped living. I won't be like you, Mama, I said quietly. I won't forgive. Not this time. On October 11th, I found another envelope in my mailbox. This one contained a typed note. There's more you need to know. The affair started because of what happened at the Christmas party last year. Ask your assistant coach about room 114. I'm trying to help you, David. Don't waste this chance. Room 114 was a storage room at the far end of the east hallway. Out of the way, rarely used, mostly forgotten. I found Brian Foster in the weight room, spotting one of our linemen on the bench press. Brian, got a minute? We walked out to the track, away from listening ears. What's up, coach? Tell me about room 114, the Christmas party last year. Brian's face went pale. For a long moment, he didn't say anything. I didn't want to cause problems, he finally said. I figured it wasn't my place. Brian, tell me. He let out a long breath. Megan got pretty drunk that night, like really drunk. I went looking for more folding chairs and I saw her in the hallway near 114 with Tyler Bennett. They were close, talking real quiet, laughing. He had his hand on her waist. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wasn't sure if it meant anything. People flirt at Christmas parties, right? It doesn't always mean... He stopped. You already know, don't you? I know everything. Brian looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. Coach, I'm sorry. I should have said something. I didn't want to be the guy who blew up your marriage over something that might have been nothing. It wasn't nothing. I clapped him on the shoulder, harder than necessary. But you're going to make it right. When the time comes, you're going to tell people what you saw. Understood? Yes, sir. I spent the next day figuring out who was sending the envelopes. The Christmas party detail was specific. Whoever the informant was, they'd been there, watching, connecting dots. The first envelope had arrived in my mailbox, not through the mail. Someone local, someone with access. It was Nathan who figured it out. Eleanor Whitfield, he said, showing me a photograph. School secretary. Been there since Nixon was president. Eleanor. Of course. The woman who knew everyone's schedule, everyone's business, everyone's secrets. The woman who'd been signing Megan's attendance sheets for years. I found Eleanor in the front office after school, filing paperwork with the quiet efficiency of someone who'd been doing the same job for 4 decades. Her desk was immaculate. Everything in its place, every form sorted, every file labeled. She'd been running this office longer than most of our teachers had been alive. Eleanor, can we talk? She looked up at me, and I saw something shift in her expression. Recognition. Understanding. Maybe even relief. Close the door, David. I did. Then I sat in the chair across from her desk and waited. You got my letters, she said. It wasn't a question. I did. Why? Eleanor folded her hands on her desk, the hands of a woman who'd spent 40 years keeping secrets, watching the small dramas of a high school play out generation after generation. Because I've worked at this school since 1984. I've seen good people and bad people and everything in between. I've watched principals come and go, watched scandals bloom and fade, watched kids who had nothing become somebody and kids who had everything throw it away. She paused. And I've watched your wife for 3 years, David. Watched her take credit for other teachers' work. Watched her manipulate administrators who didn't know any better. Watched her smile and charm her way into positions she didn't earn, and accolades she didn't deserve. That's not... Please, let me finish. Her voice was firm but not unkind. I noticed the pattern last spring. Every Thursday, she'd sign out for curriculum meetings or district professional development. But when I checked with the district office, as part of my regular administrative duties, of course, there was never any record of these meetings. They didn't exist. They never existed. She slid a folder across her desk. I opened it to find copies of sign-out sheets, highlighted and annotated, going back 6 months. Every Thursday, every lie. I didn't know what she was doing at first, Eleanor continued. I just knew she was lying about where she was going. And then I saw her with that Bennett man one afternoon, in the parking lot behind the gym. The way they looked at each other. Well, it wasn't hard to figure out after that. Why didn't you come to me directly? Because I wasn't sure how you'd react. Some men get angry when they find out. They do stupid things, make threats. Or worse, they bury their heads in the sand and pretend they didn't hear anything. She met my eyes. I needed to know you were the kind of man who would handle this the right way. And the letters? The anonymous information? I wanted to give you the pieces without putting my name on them. Let you discover the truth yourself, in your own time. She smiled slightly. I'm an old woman, David. I don't have the energy for dramatic confrontations. But I know what's right, and I know what's wrong, and your wife is very, very wrong. Why help me at all? Eleanor was quiet for a moment, her eyes distant. I remember when you first came to this school, fresh out of college, full of fire, determined to turn around a football program that hadn't won a game in 3 years. The other coaches said you were crazy. The administration said you were wasting your time. But you put in the work. You earned the respect of those boys. And when you married Megan at the ceremony at First Baptist, I thought, that's a man who deserves good things. She leaned forward. You're a good man, David. This town needs you. And I've been watching that woman lie to everyone for years, and I'm tired of being the only one who sees it. I took the folder. Thank you, Eleanor. This means more than you know. Just promise me one thing. Her eyes were sharp. When the time comes, don't let her turn you into the villain. She's going to try. She's going to cry and plead and make excuses. Don't let her. I won't. I meant it. The week before the fall festival passed in a blur of preparation. I met with an attorney named Patricia Dawes, a pit bull of a woman from Atlanta who specialized in high-asset divorces. Nathan had found her through his network. She had no connections to Millbrook, no loyalties that could be compromised. Georgia is an equitable distribution state, she explained, spreading documents across her conference table. Infidelity doesn't automatically determine property division, but it can be a factor, especially when one spouse has dissipated marital assets, which, based on these bank statements, your wife has been doing enthusiastically. The house? Inherited from your grandmother, your name alone on the deed. She has no claim. Patricia smiled thinly. You never added her to the title? My attorney advised against it when we got married. Said to wait a few years, make sure things were stable. Smart man. I'd say things are pretty unstable now. I signed retainer agreements, provided documentation, and left her office with a clear picture of what the divorce would look like. Megan would get almost nothing. Meanwhile, Rachel was executing her own plan with military precision. She'd filed the forgery charges against Tyler, sealed until we were ready to spring them. She'd tipped off William Ashford about the billing irregularities, and an internal audit was quietly underway at the firm. And Jessica Cole, Tyler's other mistress, had been contacted by a firm investigator and learned that the man who'd been telling her he was separated was very much still married and sleeping with multiple women. She's furious, Rachel told me over the phone. She's willing to testify. She's willing to burn him to the ground. Good. David, Rachel paused. Are you ready for this? Really ready? I thought about Megan. About 12 years of marriage, 12 years of shared meals and holiday traditions and the 1,000 small intimacies of life together. About the woman I thought I knew, and the stranger who'd been living in her skin. I'm ready. The morning of October 18th dawned clear and cool. Perfect weather for the fall festival. I woke before sunrise, lay in bed for a moment listening to Megan's breathing, and thought about everything that had brought me to this day. 6 weeks of investigation. Hundreds of pages of documents. Enough evidence to destroy 2 marriages, 2 careers, 2 carefully constructed facades. All of it was ready. All the pieces were in place. Today was the day. By 9 o'clock, the town square was transformed into a maze of craft booths and food vendors and carnival games. The high school marching band was warming up near the gazebo, running through their fight song with more enthusiasm than precision. Children ran screaming between the attractions while their parents clutched coffee cups and compared notes on whose kid was on the honor roll. American flags hung from every lamppost. It looked exactly like every other fall festival I'd attended for 15 years. 3,000 people were expected. Most of the town. Half the county. Every person who'd ever believed Megan's act, who'd admired her dedication, who'd held her up as an example of what a community leader should be. They were all about to learn the truth. I ate breakfast with Megan, watching her across the table as she reviewed her acceptance speech for the 10th time. She'd spent 3 days writing it, practicing in front of the mirror, getting her pauses and her emotional beats just right. She'd asked me to listen twice, and both times I'd told her it was perfect. "You nervous?" I asked. "A little." She smiled. That radiant smile I'd once loved. "This is the biggest honor of my career. I just want it to be perfect." "It will be." I reached across and squeezed her hand, feeling nothing. "I'm proud of you." "Thank you, honey." Her eyes were bright. "That means everything. I know I've been distracted lately with all the prep work and Thursday meetings." "Thursday meetings?" "Right, exactly." She didn't even flinch. "But after today, things will calm down. We can take that trip we've been talking about." "Sounds nice." The lie came easier than I expected. Maybe because I'd had 6 weeks to practice. By noon, I was at the festival, shaking hands and talking football and acting like a man who had nothing on his mind but community spirit. I ran into parents of players, fellow coaches, old friends I'd known since childhood. Everyone wanted to talk about playoff chances. Everyone wanted to congratulate me on the season. Nathan was in position with his documentary crew, 2 professionals with cameras who'd been hired to capture small-town traditions. In reality, they were ready to project the evidence onto a screen at my signal. Rachel arrived with her children around 1 o'clock, looking calm and composed in a blue sundress that matched her eyes. We exchanged a brief nod across the crowd. Nothing more. At 3:30, I saw Megan check her phone and smile. I was close enough to read the text over her shoulder. "After your speech, meet me at the usual place. I have a surprise." Tyler, promising her a celebration, champagne at the hotel, flowers, maybe a jewelry box. He had no idea that 3 hours from now, he'd be in handcuffs. The Teacher of the Year ceremony was scheduled for 4 o'clock. At 3:45, Mayor Hutchins took the main stage and tapped the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please." The crowd gathered, flowing in from the food stalls and craft booths and carnival games. I saw the superintendent of schools near the front, beaming with pride. I saw William Ashford in the VIP section, his face carefully neutral. He knew about the audit, knew something was coming, but not the full scope of what we'd planned. I saw Eleanor Whitfield standing near the edge of the stage, holding a manila folder. And I saw Tyler Bennett near the back of the crowd, watching with a smile that made my fists clench at my sides. He thought he was about to watch his mistress receive an award. He thought this was just another chapter in their secret romance. He was wrong. "Today, it's my honor to present the Millbrook Community Teacher of the Year Award," the mayor continued. "This award recognizes not just excellent teaching, but exceptional character, an educator who embodies the values our community holds dear. This year's recipient has touched countless lives through her dedication, her compassion, and her unwavering commitment to our children." The crowd applauded. Megan stood beside the stage, her face glowing. "Please join me in welcoming this year's Teacher of the Year, Mrs. Megan Lawson." The applause swelled as Megan climbed the steps and took her place at the microphone. She looked out at the crowd, at the town that adored her, and she smiled that radiant smile I'd once loved. "Thank you so much for this incredible honor. I want to start by talking about what integrity means to me, and why it's the foundation of everything we do as educators." I let her talk. I let her have her moment, her carefully rehearsed speech about values and character and being a role model. I let her speak about honesty and trust and the sacred responsibility of shaping young minds. And when she finally reached her conclusion, "Thank you all from the bottom of my heart," I let the applause wash over her like a wave. Mayor Hutchins stepped back to the microphone. "Wasn't that beautiful? Now, I believe Megan's husband, Coach David Lawson, would like to say a few words." David? I walked to the stage. Megan's smile faltered for just a moment when she saw my face. Something cold in my eyes, maybe. Something she'd never seen before. I reached the microphone. 3,000 people were watching. The cameras were rolling. I looked out at the crowd and began to speak. Megan talked about integrity, about being a role model, about the values we should teach our children. I paused, letting the silence stretch. I think those are important things. So let me tell you what integrity really looks like. Megan's face was starting to change. Uncertainty, confusion, the first flickers of fear. Integrity looks like keeping your vows. It looks like honoring the commitment you made before God and your family. It looks like not betraying the person who built a life with you. I turned to look at her directly. It looks like not sleeping with your best friend's husband for 6 months while lying to everyone in this town. The silence was absolute. 3,000 people holding their breath. Megan has been having an affair with Tyler Bennett since April. They meet every Thursday at the Magnolia Inn, 45 minutes outside town. I have photographs. I have hotel receipts. I have 6 months of text messages. The crowd erupted. Gasps, exclamations, the buzz of shocked voices spreading outward like ripples in a pond. Megan's face had gone white. Her mouth was opening and closing, but no sound was coming out. I saw Tyler near the back, trying to push his way through the crowd toward the exit. He didn't get far. Nathan and 2 sheriff's deputies moved to block his path. Rachel stepped forward, her voice cutting through the chaos. Tyler Bennett, you're being served. The projector screen that Nathan's crew had set up flickered to life. Images appeared. The parking garage photos, the hotel timestamps, the credit card statements. Text message transcripts scrolled across the screen. Intimate words meant to be private now displayed for the entire town to see. Tyler was shouting something, but I couldn't hear it over the crowd. William Ashford pushed through to stand in front of him, his face like granite. Tyler, you're terminated, effective immediately. Ashford's voice carried across the chaos. And I've reported the billing irregularities to the state bar. You're done. Megan grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. David, you have to listen to me. He's manipulating you. Someone is lying. The photographs are lying? The hotel receipts are lying? I pulled my arm free. The burner phone you've been hiding in your underwear drawer, that's lying too? Her face crumpled. For just a moment, I saw the woman I'd married, frightened, vulnerable, desperate. And then it was gone, replaced by something harder, uglier. You're having a breakdown, she said loudly, turning to appeal to the crowd. David's been under so much stress with the season, he's not thinking clearly. Eleanor Whitfield climbed the stage steps and handed a folder to Mayor Hutchins. Falsified sign-out sheets, she said, loud enough for the microphone to catch. 6 months of lies documented officially. The superintendent took the folder, flipped through it, and his expression told Megan everything she needed to know. I stepped down from the stage, leaving my wife standing alone in front of the town that had celebrated her. The crowd parted for me as I walked through. Some people reached out to touch my arm. Others just stared in stunned silence. I heard whispers following me like ripples in water. I didn't look back. The next few hours were chaos. Tyler was arrested on forgery charges at 5:47 p.m. The sheriff's deputies had been waiting with a warrant that Rachel had arranged 3 days earlier. Sealed, hidden, ready to be executed at precisely the right moment. He'd tried to run when he saw them approaching, which added resisting arrest to his growing list of problems. Rachel had documentation of the forged home equity line, the original documents with her signature that she'd never signed, a handwriting expert's analysis confirming the forgery, bank records showing when and where the money had gone. His bail was set at $50,000, money he didn't have access to, since Rachel had frozen their joint accounts that morning. His parents eventually bailed him out 2 days later. By then, his face had been on the local news 3 times. Megan tried to come home that evening. She found the locks changed and her belongings packed in boxes in the garage. I watched through the window as she stood in the driveway, pounding on the door, screaming my name. "David! David, please! Let me explain. It's not what you think." I sat in the living room and listened to her beg for 20 minutes. Then Rachel's older brother pulled up in his truck, helped her load the boxes, and drove her away. She called my phone 37 times that night. I didn't answer once. I spent that night alone in the house we'd shared, sitting in the dark with a glass of bourbon, feeling something I hadn't expected. Relief. The weight I'd been carrying for 6 weeks, the weight of knowing, of pretending, of planning, was finally gone. The lies were over. The truth was out. And whatever came next, at least it would be real. The phone calls started the next morning. Well-wishers, mostly, people from the church, parents of players, old friends who'd seen the footage and wanted me to know they were on my side. The story had spread across 3 counties by Monday morning. By Tuesday, it was on the local news. By Wednesday, someone had uploaded Nathan's documentary footage to the internet, and suddenly the whole state knew about the Fall Festival Showdown, as someone had started calling it. Megan was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. The school board met in emergency session on Monday evening, and by Tuesday afternoon they'd received statements from 3 teachers about Megan taking credit for their work. By Thursday, 2 more had come forward with stories of being bullied when they'd tried to stand up to her. By the following Monday, the Teacher of the Year committee formally rescinded her award in a public statement that cited conduct unbecoming of an educator. Her teaching license was placed under review by the state board. She'd never teach in Georgia again. Tyler's law license was suspended pending the ethics investigation. The firm conducted their internal audit and discovered nearly $40,000 in questionable billing over 3 years, not just on the school district case, but on half a dozen others. William Ashford released a statement expressing his profound disappointment in an attorney he'd once mentored. The firm sued Tyler for embezzlement. He was forced to liquidate his retirement accounts to settle. Jessica Cole, the paralegal, filed a civil suit that added another layer of humiliation to his collapse. She'd been told he was separated, that his marriage was over, that she was the only one. Finding out he'd been sleeping with Megan while telling Jessica the same lies had shattered her. Rachel filed for divorce 3 days after the festival. Given the criminal charges and documented infidelity, her attorney told her she'd get everything: the house, primary custody, significant alimony. Tyler's attempts to paint her as unstable fell apart completely when his own lies were exposed. No one believed the long-suffering husband narrative anymore. 2 weeks after the festival, Megan's attorney reached out to mine about divorce proceedings. She wanted the house, my grandmother's house, the house that had never had her name on the deed. She wanted half the savings she'd spent down to almost nothing on shopping sprees and jewelry I'd never seen. She wanted alimony, spousal support, a settlement that would let her maintain the lifestyle to which she'd become accustomed. Patricia Dawes destroyed her in the preliminary hearings. "Your Honor," Patricia said, her voice cool and professional, "Mrs. Lawson has presented herself as an equal partner in this marriage. The evidence tells a different story. Over the past 6 months, she has withdrawn nearly $40,000 from their joint savings account for personal expenditures. Luxury items, designer clothing, gifts that never appeared in the marital home. When asked to account for these expenditures, she claimed they were necessary for her professional image. We have receipts showing these items were purchased during the same time period as her documented affair." Megan's attorney objected. The judge overruled. "Furthermore," Patricia continued, "the marital home is not, in fact, marital property. It was inherited by Mr. Lawson from his grandmother's estate in 2015, 2 years before the marriage. Mrs. Lawson's name was never added to the deed. She has no legal claim to the property. Georgia courts take a dim view of spouses who dissipate marital assets. They take an even dimmer view of spouses who commit adultery while giving speeches about integrity. By the time Patricia was done presenting our case, Megan's claims had been systematically dismantled. She got almost nothing. The house was mine. The retirement accounts she hadn't touched were protected. Her teaching license was under review, making her employment prospects dim. The woman who'd once been celebrated as a pillar of the community was now dependent on her sister's generosity in Alabama. I heard she tried to contact me repeatedly after the divorce was finalized. Letters, emails, messages through mutual friends. I never responded. There was nothing left to say. The football team dedicated their season to me. We went undefeated in the regular season, won the regional championship, and made it all the way to the state semifinals before losing to a team from Atlanta with a defense that was frankly unfair. Letters arrived from across the state. People who'd heard the story, men and women who'd been through similar betrayals, strangers who just wanted me to know they respected how I'd handled it. I kept a few of them, the ones that said they'd found courage in my example. I started attending a support group for betrayed spouses. Not because I was broken, but because I remembered how alone I'd felt in those first weeks, and I wanted to help others who were going through the same thing. A month after the festival, I received a wedding invitation in the mail. Rachel was getting married. A man named Thomas she'd met through her divorce support group. A widower with 2 kids of his own. A contractor who'd rebuilt her faith in the idea that decent men still existed. I went to the wedding. It was a small ceremony, just family and close friends, held in her parents' backyard under a tent strung with white lights. She looked happy in a way I'd never seen before. Not the performative happiness of social events, but something real and quiet and settled. After the ceremony, I found her near the punch bowl, watching Thomas dance with his daughter. "Thank you for coming," she said. "Thank you for sending the photos," she smiled. "I couldn't have done this without you. Any of it." "Yes, you could have. You're stronger than you know." We stood in comfortable silence, watching the dancers move beneath the lights. "What are you going to do now?" she asked. "Keep coaching. Keep living." I shrugged. "See what happens." "You'll be fine, David. You're a good man." I didn't know if that was true, but I was learning to believe it might be. 2 years later, on a Saturday afternoon in early October, I walked into a veterinary clinic with my golden retriever, Max, who'd eaten something he shouldn't have. The vet who treated him was named Hannah Powell. Dark hair, kind eyes, a laugh that made me feel like the world wasn't such a bad place. She'd moved to Millbrook the previous year, bought a small house near the river, started building a life in a town she'd never heard of before she answered a job posting. She didn't know my history. She didn't know about the festival, about Megan, about any of it. When I asked her to dinner, she said yes. When I told her the story, eventually, carefully, in pieces over many months, she listened without judgment. "I'm not looking to rush anything," I told her. "Neither am I," she said. "We've got time." We did. We do. Last month, I saw Megan. I was in a grocery store in a neighboring county, picking up supplies for a team cookout, when I turned down the cereal aisle and stopped short. She was standing at the register in a cashier's smock, scanning items with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd been doing the same job for a while. She'd aged. Her hair was shorter, duller than I remembered. The confident glow that had made her the center of every room was gone, replaced by something tired and worn. She looked up and saw me. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. She opened her mouth to speak, to apologize maybe, or to explain, or to ask for something I'd never give. But I didn't wait to find out. I turned around, walked to a different checkout lane, and left the store. I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no satisfaction in her downfall. Just a vast, quiet indifference. The kind you feel for a stranger you'll never see again. That's how I knew I was healed. The new season starts next week. Jimmy Reeves is playing for Auburn now, and I've got a new quarterback who's raw but hungry and reminds me of myself at that age. The town is already buzzing about our chances. Hannah came to dinner last night. She's thinking about getting a dog of her own, a rescue from the shelter she volunteers at on weekends. We talked about maybe getting a place together, eventually, when the time is right. I drove home past the high school, past the field where I've spent 15 years of my life, and I felt something I hadn't expected. Gratitude. Not for what Megan did. Never for that. But for the clarity that came after. For the life I'm building now. For the chance to be someone better than the man I was before. I parked my truck, walked onto the field, and blew my whistle. "Let's go, gentlemen. We've got work to do," practice began.